Hi. In a previous talk I gave, I said to people who were having a really hard time chelating that they were doing something wrong. And I thought that perhaps I should say that a little bit differently. It's not that you're doing something wrong, but something wrong is going on. And Andy and Brian had put together a list of things that can go wrong, and which usually explain if you're really having a hard time chelating what those can be. So I had written an article about it. It was called Pitfalls in the program. So there's a list of 17 different things that could be actually going wrong and giving you a hard time. So the first one and the most dire is you didn't get all the amalgam out of your mouth. And I was a good example of that because I chelated with amalgam under a crown. I didn't really feel it until I started using alpha lipoic acid. But when I started alpha lipoic acid, I felt like I had been kicked in the gut by a horse. I got so tired and exhausted I could barely get out of bed, and my liver enzyme shot up into the triple digit. So I woke up in the middle of the night, and it's sort of this epiphany. Oh, I better look under those crowns. And sure enough, there was amalgam under one of the crowns. And when I got that all cleared out, under two of the crowns, when I got that all cleared out, everything went smoothly after that. But since that time, we've also started dealing a lot with people who have little tiny flecks of mercury just left behind by the dentist. And those are really a pain too. It's so bad that we really insist that people get these digital bite wings x-rays of their dental work and post them on the group and have one of our dentists check them to see that everything is actually gone. What can happen is you can either get really bad, with a larger piece of amalgam, you can get really, really bad symptoms like I did, which will, warn you and you'll stop chelating. But with one of those little flecks, it might be just a question of no progress at all, or really getting bad so slowly you can't really tell. So it's kind of confusing. And we've also had instances of people who started feeling much, much better for a few months and then just everything fell to pieces. And I think I postulate that that's a case of it taking that long for the alpha lipoic acid to reach the mercury that's hidden in the teeth. So number two pitfall is you're chelating in the presence of an ongoing exposure. And that would be like your teeth, like the mercury in your teeth, or maybe you're eating too much tuna fish or something like that and really not thinking about it. Or maybe there was a mercury spill 20 years ago in your apartment and something terrible like that. And this also comes up with the question of lead, because there's often lead exposure for people in their houses from old paint. And you can test for ongoing exposure by doing a blood test, because blood tests will show if you're getting an ongoing exposure. 3, you're not respecting the half-life of the chelators. Some people think it's okay to take DMSA or lipoic acid a few times a day. Unfortunately, until we find chelators that are longer than this, that have longer half-lives than this, then you have to respect these 3 and 4 hour time limits. It's 3 hours for lipoic acid, 4 hours for DMSA, and 8 hours for DMPS, which is a lot easier to use. If you take in these chelators off their half-life, you're just going to be mobilizing mercury, and it's going to get redistributed and make you worse. 4, you're skipping their nighttime dose. Sometimes people are so averse to waking up at night that they think they can skip the nighttime dose. You can't. You're going to have redistribution problems if you do that. And I will add that that sustained release alpha lipoic acid is not a solution to this. 5, you are ending the round too soon. A complete round is a minimum of 63 or 64 hours. Another way to express this is 3 days and the 2 intervening nights. If you stop earlier than that, it'll make you feel bad. 6, you're dosing too high. Your dose of chelator is moving more mercury than your liver can handle, and what is not getting excreted is getting redistributed. Since feeling awful may have been your norm for a long time, it can be difficult to know if you are making this mistake. You should only increase your dose quickly at the beginning to establish your starting dose. Once you find that sweet spot, stay there for as long as it is still causing you symptoms. When it stops causing you symptoms, then you can move up. This can be from a few months to even a year. 7, you are not taking adequate supplement support. At the very least, you need to take the core 4, which we talk about, in large amounts as to counter the oxidative stress of the mercury and the electrolyte stress that mercury causes. 8, you are chemically sensitive and cannot tolerate most supplements. This is difficult. In this case, you'll need to take low doses of chelators and proceed in a very conservative way, and just keep trying to find supplements that you can tolerate and chelate as best you can and then try later on and see if you can tolerate the supplements at a later date. 9, you're not supporting your liver adequately. Your poor liver must deal with all this poison you are excreting. You should at least take milk thistle extract and possibly all the other liver support supplements we suggest. And we have run across quite a few people who were having problems, and when they really supported their liver, they started to get better. 10, your adrenals and thyroid need more support. Almost all mercury toxic people have adrenal problems, and many of them need support to support their thyroid too. Almost every mercury toxic person has particularly adrenal problems, and adrenal problems cause lots of really strange symptoms, ranging from anxiety to insomnia to tremors to all kinds of stuff. So at the very least, there's that adrenal cortex, which is the most fantastic thing that we tell people to take. Some people react to it badly at first, and you have to kind of get used to it, but it's really a fantastic supplement. 11, you have unrecognized food sensitivities. Toxic people may react oddly to all sorts of food chemicals, but high thiol foods are a particular problem for around 30% of us. If you're sensitive, if you're one of these 30% of people who are sensitive to thiols, you may have, stopping them will make you feel way better, and it'll make chelating easier, because lipoic acid is what you have to take in order to get this stuff out of your brain, is a high thiol supplement. Thiols have a delayed reaction, so people could be reacting to them and not even know it, because at first they make you feel good, and then they make you feel horrible. So you may not recognize what's happening, and you may even crave them because they make you feel good at first. They also make your candida worse. So for everybody, they can aggravate candida, as can DMSA, and as can a lot of sugar, so watch out for that. 12, you are doing things on our do not do list. This includes, among other things, IV glutathione, challenge tests, our lipoic acid, chlorella, and cilantro. Having tried to detox with any of these in the past may make chelation longer and more difficult, and this is a very sad fact, because so many people wind up in our support groups who have been through the ringer with all this stuff first, and they're much worse than when they started, and it's harder to get better. It takes a longer time, obviously. So the glutathione IVs are a really sneaky one, because Andy told me that the worst thing about them is people will do 1 or 2 or 3, and they'll make them feel fantastic, and then they'll do the 4th one, and it'll totally destroy their health for months. So be careful, don't do those anyway. Our lipoic acid is he had heard so many reports, nobody does well on it, so we say don't take it. Chlorella is a single thiol molecule, and it'll just bounce mercury around and make you feel worse. Cilantro is an actual chelator. And since nobody, and it seems to be a fat soluble chelator that goes into your brain, judging by the horror stories that we hear from people who used it. And the reason we'd say don't use it is because nobody knows its half-life or how to use it properly. So, and the really terrible stories we hear from people who misused, who tried to detox with cilantro. 13, you need anti-seizure or psychiatric drugs and are not taking them. Chelation requires a lot of patience and discipline, and you won't have these when your brain is in revolt. And Andy explained to me that people who are on psych meds almost never want to take them. But if you want to get with this program, you've got a psychiatric diagnosis, you'd do well to stay on your psych drugs, because you need to be stable, even if it's hard for you, you don't like it. You need to be stable enough to do this, and just remember that when you chelate it enough, you'll be able to get off your psych drugs. You won't need them anymore because it's the mercury that's making you nuts. 14, you didn't chelate long enough. You think you have done enough, or you got tempted to stop and try some other method instead. You need to reach your maximum lipoic acid dose without symptoms and stay there for 6 months. So we constantly come across people, I hear people who, lose faith because this is a long process and stop and try something else. And of course, you're not going to get anywhere if you do that. 15, you need to shorten the interval between lipoic acid doses. Some people experience dose-to-dose redistribution at 3-hour dosing. Some people need 2 hours and 40 minutes dosing, and a few need 2-hour dosing. It's seems kind of counterintuitive, but it does make it easier for some people to shorten the interval between doses. 15, you need more methylation support. Brian says that a classic sign of this is a stall at about 50 rounds, although that can also be the dump, which I'll do another video about what the dump is. And he counseled trying SAMe, TMG, B12, folate, methyl B12, or methylfolate. Finding what works is not without risk, because in some people, SAMe can cause severe depression, TMG can cause extreme anxiety, and B12 can cause angry outbursts. That's the happy state that mercury toxic people, mercury toxic people have to deal with. And he did not believe that cyano, B12, and folate compete for sites with methyl B12 and methylfolate, but some people appear to do better with these last two. The only downside is the extra cost. Brian knows a person who needs multiple methyl B12 shots a day to function. This person is a severe outlier, but it emphasizes the point that methylation can be the weak link for some people. So if you're having that experience where at about 50 rounds in, you just suddenly don't make any progress, you can experiment with these methyl donors. 17, you let non-crucial health issues divert you from chelation and don't get back on schedule. Anti-cutler chelation is not a quick fix. It requires diligence. Don't let anything divert you from your schedule if you can help it. Of course, if you have appendicitis or surgery, you'll have to stop. You may want to stop if you get a cold and you think chelating will make it worse, but get back on the wagon as soon as possible. Andy said it's okay to chelate when you are taking antibiotics for other illnesses. Some practitioners want to fix your gut and, have to optimize your detox pathways and get rid of all your candida before you're in a state to start chelating. But we tell people, no, start chelating and do all that other stuff at the same time. Just don't put it off. Many chronic problems are just not going to get any better until you get some of that mercury out. So, in conclusion, over the past 22 years, thousands of people have recovered their health by following this protocol, the anti-cutler chelation protocol. Our success stories are more robust than mere anecdotal reports. ACC is no longer a matter of faith, but a protocol with well-defined boundaries. If you want to succeed, be mindful of our do not do list and the above list of pitfalls that I just read to you. And so thank you very much. Please like and share and do all those things that they tell you to do on social media. And I'm going to try to do this video in French.